They say gold is wealth, eternal, incorruptible, the foundation of empires. But what if gold was the poison? What if the very metal that built the greatest empire of the 16th century was the same thing that destroyed it from within? This is the story of how Spain's unimaginable fortune became its greatest tragedy, a lesson from 5 centuries ago that still echoes in every financial bubble, every inflation cycle, every time we believe money alone can buy prosperity. And today, that pattern is unfolding again, only faster. The year is 1492. Christopher Columbus sails west, and with that voyage, Europe's relationship with wealth changes forever. Before the ships reached the New World, Spain was not yet the global titan it would soon become. It was emerging from centuries of war. The Reconquista had just ended. The last Muslim stronghold in Granada had fallen. Spain was unified under Ferdinand and Isabella, and the country, though victorious, was broke. Gold and silver were scarce across Europe. The medieval economy ran on silver coins, limited, stable, and backed by real scarcity. Most people lived off the land. Trade was slow but steady. Then came the discovery of the Americas, and with it, a new world of wealth that seemed infinite. Gold was seen not just as money but as divine reward. God, glory, and gold became the creed of a generation. The Spanish crown saw the Americas as the key to permanent power. And for a while, they were right. Within decades, the Spanish conquistadors turned the New World into a vast extraction machine. Cortés conquered the Aztec Empire, Pizarro crushed the Incas, and ship after ship began sailing back to Seville, loaded with gold, silver, and jewels. The scale was beyond imagination. Between 1500 and 1650, Spain imported over 180 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver from the Americas. The mines of Potosí, in modern-day Bolivia, became the beating heart of the empire. It was called the mountain that eats men, because it did. Tens of thousands of indigenous laborers and African slaves died extracting the metal that Europe worshipped. But while this flow of precious metal made Spain the richest empire on paper, it was planting the seeds of its ruin. Gold and silver poured into Spain so fast that the value of money itself began to collapse. Prices rose. The cost of food, land, and labor skyrocketed. The Spanish crown didn't understand what was happening. How could too much money make a nation poorer? What they didn't know was that they were living through the world as first great inflationary spiral. In the short term, Spain's wealth seemed unstoppable. The gold financed cathedrals, palaces, and vast armies. It built the Armada, funded the Habsburg Wars, and made the Spanish king, Charles V, the most powerful man in Europe. Spain ruled territories from South America to the Philippines, from the Netherlands to northern Italy. Its coin, the Real de a Ocho, the piece of 8, became the first global currency, accepted in trade from Seville to Shanghai. Merchants, nobles, and kings all wanted Spanish silver. But here's the paradox. While gold flooded the treasury, Spain's economy itself began to hollow out. Why farm when imported grain could be paid for with silver? Why manufacture when you could buy everything abroad with gold? The Spanish crown and its elite grew dependent on imports. The wealth didn't circulate within Spain, it flowed outward, fueling the economies of England, France, and the Dutch Republic. Spain had the gold, but other nations got the prosperity. By the mid-1500s, Europe was in the midst of what historians call the price revolution, one of the first major inflationary crises in modern history. Across the continent, prices quadrupled in a century, but nowhere was it felt more sharply than in Spain. Inflation eroded the value of wages, savings, and debts. Commoners found bread unaffordable. Landowners and the church, rich in gold, bought up property and power, while the working class sank deeper into poverty. The Spanish monarchy responded the only way it knew how, by borrowing. Wars in Europe, crusades in the Mediterranean, rebellions in the Netherlands, all needed funding. Gold from the Americas became collateral for massive loans from Italian and German bankers. But when even the gold wasn't enough, Spain began to default. Between 1557 and 1647, the Spanish crown declared bankruptcy 5 separate times. Each time foreign creditors seized Spanish assets, the value of their currency plummeted and confidence collapsed. The empire's wealth was revealed for what it really was, a mirage made of metal. By the early 17th century, the Spanish economy was broken. The gold that had once dazzled Europe had turned toxic. Domestic industry had vanished. Artisans and manufacturers couldn't compete with cheaper foreign goods. The countryside emptied as peasants fled unbearable taxes, and as silver and gold flowed in, Spain's productivity flowed out. The irony was brutal. Spain had more money than ever, but less wealth, because wealth isn't gold. It's the capacity to produce, to create, to sustain. By 1650, the empire was a shell of its former self. Its ships were rotting in harbors, its debts unpayable, its people starving in the shadow of royal palaces lined with gold leaf. Even the colonies began to stagnate as local revolts and corruption spread. The Spanish Empire, once the envy of the world, had been undone by the very metal it worshipped. Spain tried to reform, but always too late. Kings imposed new taxes, banned exports of gold, tried to fix the coinage, but none of it mattered. They still believed the problem was not enough gold, when in truth it was too much. Every new shipment from the Americas was a fresh dose of poison. It papered over debt, financed another war, and deepened the rot. By the time Spain realized the truth, that its wealth was unsustainable, the empire's rivals had already surpassed it. England and the Netherlands had invested their profits into trade, industry, and technology. Spain had spent hers on grandeur and conquest, and history, as always, punished the illusion. You might think this story belongs to another age, a cautionary tale carved into history. But look closer, and you'll see it happening again. Every generation rediscovers the Spanish curse. In the 1970s, the US abandoned the gold standard and printed money to sustain growth, triggering a decade of inflation. In the 2000s, cheap credit created bubbles in housing and debt. And today, investors rush to gold again, fearing collapse, repeating the same instinct Spain had 500 years ago. We still chase safe assets, forgetting that value without productivity is illusion. Gold may seem stable. It may even rise when everything else falls. But as Spain learned the hard way, when everyone piles into gold out of fear, it's not safety, it's surrender. The Spanish gold curse wasn't just about metal. It was about mindset. The belief that wealth can exist without work, that fortune can replace foundation. And that illusion doesn't die. It just reinvents itself in stocks, crypto, real estate, or whatever glittering promise the age provides. Spain's story is a mirror, one that reflects our own age of abundance. We live in a world where money is digital, credit infinite, and new gold rushes happen every decade. Yet the pattern remains. Easy wealth breeds complacency. Complacency breeds dependence, and dependence ends in collapse. The Spanish Empire's downfall wasn't a single event. It was a slow decay of meaning, where gold became detached from purpose. When money stops representing productivity, when value stops being tied to creation, collapse is inevitable. Spain's tragedy wasn't that it ran out of gold, it's that it forgot what gold was supposed to represent. First, wealth without productivity is fragility. Spain's empire had endless gold, but no real economy. The result was inflation, debt, and collapse. Second, resource windfalls can be curses, not blessings. From Spain's gold to oil-rich nations today, sudden wealth often destroys the systems that sustain long-term growth. Third, history always rhymes. The same forces, greed, fear, short-term thinking, drive the booms and busts of every era. The Spanish gold curse isn't ancient history. It is a timeless warning about what happens when the world mistakes the symbol of wealth for wealth itself. When the Spanish fleets crossed the Atlantic, they believed they were bringing home the future. In reality, they were importing their own collapse. It wasn't the gold that doomed them. It was the blindness it created. The inability to see that prosperity isn't what you have. it's what you build. And today, as we chase digital fortunes, print money without restraint, and invest in illusions of endless growth, maybe it's time to ask, are we any different from Spain in the 16th century, or are we just repeating the same curse, one golden coin at a time? If this story gave you a new perspective on wealth, economics, and the hidden cycles that shape our world, subscribe to Financial Archaeologist, because history doesn't just repeat, it compounds.